going back to there being multiple dimensions.
These burgers are good. Stop.
Tell the camera you screwed me up. Did you just fart too?
Get away from me. I swear to God, if you post
Babe,
that
this is gonna get 1 million subscribers one day. So I'm going to do the one sip beer style. I'm going to do it on here and on the Instagram right now. So this is the Prankster Belgian style golden ale. Never had it. Picked it up from the local wine shop down the street. And they had a bunch of beers, some mixed beers that I've never had before. So I did a little mix and match 6-pack. Here we go. I'll let that foam die down a little bit. You don't want your first sip to be all foam. That's no good. We live in a world of unimaginable surprises, from the fusion energy that lights the sun to the genetic and evolutionary consequences of this light's dancing for eons upon the earth. And yet, according to scripture, paradise conforms to our most superficial concerns with all the fidelity of a Caribbean cruise. That is from Sam Harris. It's just popped up on my Instagram. Interesting. Anyways, here we go. We're gonna get rocking. I think the foam's down. Foam's down enough. Typically Belgian style golden ales are, I think, fairly unexciting, but we're gonna go with it anyways. I'm gonna flip this puppy up quick, and we're gonna rock and roll. There we go. All right, folks, here we are again. Tonight we got the Prankster Belgian style golden ale. I think these are typically unexciting, but here we go. One sip, everybody knows the rules. Not as good as last night, that's for sure. Five out of 10. All right, anyways, what do you call it? Free advertising there for the old Prankster. Never heard of them, but there we go. So started to record a video about this the other night. Didn't go quite as planned, because it's kind of it's a very exciting topic, but it's also it can be a little bit confusing. And I just want to start this off by saying I am not a physicist, am nowhere close to being a physicist, and don't pretend to be one. I think physics is extremely cool, and I think having a good understanding of physics can kind of lead you to outcomes that you might otherwise not come to, because I think it gives you a good fundamental understanding of the universe we inhabit, and sort of what I want to talk about tonight. So what I want to talk about is reality, and kind of what reality is, and as humans, kind of our limited understanding or limited perception of reality. So what is reality? So we humans kind of perceive in 3 dimensions, or we kind of live in a 3-dimensional universe. But according to physics models and theories, some say the universe is actually 4-dimensional. According to string theory, some even say the universe has 10 dimensions. And I just recently listened to Eric Weinstein. He was on Joe Rogan, and then he also put out his own kind of longer form podcast on his theory he calls geometric unity, that he's actually kind of kept to himself the past where he's kind of worked on the last, I think, 35 years, but has kept to himself. And he's not a physicist, he's a mathematician, that's his background. But in this, he poses that there's actually 14 dimensions. But anyways, so that's kind of outside our human grasp. Like, we really can't grasp 4 dimensions or anything beyond that. Now, we can, according to certain equations and to certain physics models, we can kind of conceptually understand that, but we can't actually experience that. Humans are limited in their ability to perceive that or experience that. So, to kind of help further understand our humans' limited ability to perceive and kind of fully understand the kind of complexity of the universe, a real easy exercise or something that's easy to kind of conceptualize this and think about is just think about all the systems in your body that are operating right now. You can conceptually understand what's going on inside your body, but you can't fully grasp and experience everything that's going on. So we know, like, our heart's pumping blood, we know our heart's beating, and we know there's a bunch of cells in our body. We know our body's actually made of a bunch of bacteria. Now we can, again, conceptually understand that with breakthroughs in science and technology, but we don't actually come to experience that firsthand. And the reason we can't fully experience this or understand it is because that's just too much information. Just like you're only really conscious and aware of a very small portion of what's actually going on in your brain. Because if we actually could fully perceive and understand everything that's going on, we would just be way too bombarded by information and wouldn't be able to make any decision whatsoever. Just think about like from a psychology and kind of biological perspective, we know we're influenced by external things all the time, but we aren't actually aware of those things going on. So just imagine if we could actually be aware of all that information and data coming in, we literally could not be able to function at all because it'd just be way too much. So why does any of this matter? Why should we care at all? And I also want to talk about briefly how, so again, humans, we have a limited understanding of reality, and each human we share the same, this is going to kind of go back to reality and what we're kind of calling that. So we kind of think of reality as kind of everything that what we perceive and everything we kind of feel everything we feel is going on. And so humans share the same lens of perception. And what I mean by that is we all have the same senses. We can smell, we can hear, we can touch, we can see. But unless you're unfortunately blind or deaf, you obviously are limited in that certain range or that certain aspect. But in general, we share that same lens of perception. So we are all human and we're made roughly the same. Obviously, there's a lot of variability amongst humans, but we're all pretty much made the same. So we share the same lens of perception. But that lens of perception is going to be influenced by many different things. It's going to be influenced by our current neurochemistry at this given moment. It's going to be influenced by our hormones. It's going to be influenced by our culture and our environment now, and the culture and environment that we grew up in, and it's going to be influenced by our genes. So now humans share all of those things, but they don't share the same concoction of those things. So everyone's experience is going to be different, and everybody's makeup of those things is going to be different and is going to generate a different experience, and it's going to generate different behaviors. So we share the same lens of perception, but we will never share the same perceptions. And what I mean by that is us and another individual can experience an event, we can experience a situation and both come out of that experience, out of that situation, or we can both come out of that situation with a drastically different experience. We could come away with different interpretations. We could come away with just kind of different information about the event as a whole. And that's kind of the twist on reality right there. So we can kind of look at reality, or we can look at a specific physical event, and again, two humans can come away with that event with different perceptions and different interpretations. So your reality isn't going to directly map onto somebody else's. Now, there might be similarities, but in general, it is not going to, you're not going to share the exact same experience as somebody else. So when somebody says, oh, I know how you feel, I've been there before, that's kind of untrue. Now, somebody might have experienced a very similar situation and might have gotten some similar things away from that or out of that situation, but no one's going to actually share the exact same experience and the exact same feelings from a specific event. So in reality, everybody's experience here, now, in the past, and the future is actually uniquely different, which is pretty cool. And kind of what that gives us is this kind of unique, to me, gives us kind of a unique vantage point to kind of view empathy and compassion, because if we truly don't, can't really completely relate with somebody else's experience, if we know that their experience is always going to be different and their reality is always going to be different, whether it's slightly, whether it's largely, just based on their different profile of their neurochemistry at that time, their genes, their environment, their culture. That should give us a way to kind of view them in a way that's not so judgy. I think most of the time as humans, we come from this place of everybody has the same information as me. So why isn't this person getting it? We tend to think that way because we think they're sharing, or they have the same access to information as we do, and they're sharing the exact same experience as us, when in reality, that's just not true. And I think kind of knowing this and kind of conceptualizing it and understanding it can give us a way to be kind of a little bit more empathetic and compassionate towards our fellow human, because we really don't know what somebody's going through, and we really don't know their experience at any given time. Now, we might have some ideas about what they're going through or what they're experiencing, but we truly fully don't understand. So given that, we should kind of act a little bit more out of empathy and compassion than we typically otherwise would, and it should kind of just help us kind of drop our ego in pretty much every situation. So this is kind of an easy way to kind of understand it all when we're talking about reality. So at bottom line is we just fully can't understand it all, and we're probably never going to be able to fully understand it all, because the universe is way too complex, and there's just it's so vast and infinite. It's just way too hard to fully understand, and as humans, we are just always going to be kind of limited as to how we can fully perceive and understand it. So, knowing that, we also have to know that every other human shares this experience, but everybody else is going to view the physical world through the same lens, but is going to perceive and interpret it differently. So at the end of the day, reality is, from a first person subjective, or from a first person experience, it's subjective, but we can, due to physical models and equations, we can kind of understand it at an objective level, but also know from a first-person human experience that it's very subjective, and everyone's going to understand or perceive reality differently, and are always going to have a different experience. So there's never the same exact experience and the same feelings about a specific experience. So like no one can really judge you for your experience or your feelings because they truly are unique to you. I feel like I'm just like the nicest guy ever talking about this. Also wanted to go down a rabbit hole here, and it is in relation to the new TV show Devs. I hope you all have seen it. Probably not, but if you haven't, you should definitely watch it. And basically what it's about is it's some giant tech company is so Ron Swanson is like one of the main characters, and he is the head in charge of this giant tech company, and basically he only created the tech company, or so far as I know, to his daughter died when she was young, and he wants to sort of bring his daughter back to life. And what this TV show is centered around is the many worlds theory, which suggests that we don't live in just one universe, we live in many universes. And so this conversation that is taking place right now is actually happening in another universe down to almost the exact same detail, but something just slightly different. Now there might be another universe where I'm having this conversation and making this video, except the wall is green. So basically this theory is that there's an infinite amount of universes, and there's basically this interaction or this conversation I'm having right now is proceeding in an infinite amount of different ways. Now that's super, super hard to kind of fully conceptualize, and I don't get it at all, but I kind of went down the rabbit hole the other night. But it basically works on, or is kind of understood from a quantum mechanical perspective, and has to do with, which I don't understand this at all, has to do with the universal wave function. So basically, there's like the Schrodinger's cat phenomenon, which basically explains that like there's a collapse in the wave function if you have like a cat in one universe it's alive, and then just in an opposite universe it's dead. But the many worlds theory kind of takes it a step further and says that there's an infinite amount of universes with this same cat, but the experience and the what's going on is happening in an infinite amount of different ways. And so this TV show is about this tech company creating basically they have this giant quantum computer that can compute it takes the determinism of the universe. Basically every single event has a cause, and if you can fully compute that cause, you can go all the way back to to the very first thing that has ever happened, and can basically go down the entire causal chain. So basically they're working back and forward in time, knowing that every single event is caused by another event, and every single event has a reason, and it's all deterministic. So if you have one event, you can go all the way back to the events leading up to it that caused that singular event. So they've basically created this insane quantum computer that can compute all these different scenarios, kind of based on the physics of the world. Now that just goes into, again, mentioning how humans have just a limited perception and a limited understanding of the world, reality, the universe as a whole. And basically there's just so much going on that we cannot fully be aware of, we cannot fully understand, and basically we can't know everything. There's so much complexity, so much chaos, so much information out there that we just can't fully understand it at all, which is why in this TV show, they need an insane quantum computer that obviously in the real world we don't have access to and might never have access to, maybe hundreds of years down the line. But again, it just shows you that we live from a perspective of not being able to fully understand the physical world around us. We can understand it better and better due to increases and breakthroughs in science and technology. But at the end of the day, reality for humans is exactly what I'm perceiving right now. And I know if you brought another human into this room right here and sat them down and told them to create this exact same video, their experience is going to be different. It might be slightly different or it might be widely different, but it's going to be different. So at the end of the day, be a little bit nicer to the folks around you, because you truly don't know what anybody's going through. But and again, they don't know what you're going through either, because each experience is unique from a subjective standpoint and from an objective physical standpoint, because no two people were made exactly the same. And therefore, if you took two people at birth and all the causes that preceded them and all the causes that preceded their growing up or caused them to grow up, those causes would be different and the effects would be different. So there truly is no one the same or any two people that share the exact experience. So enjoy and marvel in that, will ya?